Why do some people seem to dislike you even when you haven't done anything to them? Why, despite your kindness, respect, and good intentions, do you sometimes notice cold stares, unfair criticism, or quiet hostility? What if the reason isn't as personal as it feels? What if what looks like hatred is actually pointing to something deeper happening within them? Friedrich Nietzsche explored psychological patterns behind why people reject, criticize, or resent those who stand out. Through that lens, this idea becomes clearer. Sometimes the reaction has less to do with you as a person and more to do with what you represent. Understanding this can change how you interpret judgment and criticism, and how you respond to it. 1. People don't always respond to who you are, they respond to what you represent. It's difficult to accept, but many reactions are not direct evaluations of your character. You can be calm, focused, disciplined, or confident, and still make certain people uncomfortable. Often, this discomfort comes from comparison. Your qualities may highlight something in them they feel they lack. When someone sees traits they wish they had but haven't developed, it can create internal tension. Instead of facing that discomfort directly, the mind often converts it into judgment. So rather than thinking, I wish I had that discipline or confidence, it becomes, I don't like this person. This shift protects the ego from pain. Nietzsche described this kind of psychological reversal as resentment, where frustration turns into the devaluation of others instead of self-reflection. 2. Success tends to provoke more discomfort than failure. In many social environments, failure is met with sympathy, while success can attract criticism. That contrast reveals something important about human perception. Success works like a reflection. It reminds people of what they could have done but didn't. A disciplined person can unintentionally highlight another person's lack of discipline. A courageous person can expose the hesitation in others without saying a word. What bothers people is often not the success itself, but the internal comparison it triggers. Nietzsche observed that individuals who rise above the norm are frequently misunderstood in their own time. Visibility increases both admiration and resistance. Standing out comes with both. 3. People tend to fear what they don't understand. Human beings are naturally drawn to what feels familiar. Anything that aligns with the majority feels safe. Anything outside of it can feel uncertain or even threatening. When someone thinks differently, refuses to conform, or challenges established ideas, they can be treated with suspicion. Not necessarily because they are harmful, but because they disrupt expectations. Throughout history, innovators, creators, and independent thinkers have often faced rejection before acceptance. When people cannot easily categorize someone, they sometimes react with resistance rather than curiosity. 4. Self-confidence can be misread as arrogance. Another common reason for negative reactions is confidence. Not arrogance, but simple self-assurance. A person who is comfortable with themselves does not constantly seek approval. They don't rely heavily on validation from others to feel secure. That independence can be unsettling to those who depend on external approval to maintain their own sense of worth. As a result, confidence can be misinterpreted. Calmness may be seen as coldness. Independence may be seen as superiority. Self-respect may be mistaken for disdain. People often interpret others through the lens of their own insecurities rather than reality. 5. Growth often changes your relationships. Personal development has a social cost that many people don't expect. As someone grows, their environment does not always grow with them. Some people become comfortable with an older version of you, one who was more uncertain, less focused, or closer to their own level of thinking. When you change, it can disrupt that familiarity. As you move forward with more clarity or ambition, not everyone will adjust alongside you. Some may interpret your progress as distance or even rejection, even when that isn't your intention. Nietzsche often pointed out that becoming who you truly are can involve periods of solitude. That isolation is not necessarily a punishment, it is sometimes a byproduct of change. 6. What looks like hatred can sometimes contain hidden admiration. Not all criticism comes from jealousy, but some intense negativity can be tied to fascination. There are situations where people spend a surprising amount of energy focusing on someone they claim to dislike. They watch closely, comment repeatedly, and stay mentally engaged. That level of attention can reveal more than they intend. In some cases, strong negative reactions are mixed with curiosity or even admiration that hasn't been acknowledged consciously. The emotion becomes distorted rather than expressed clearly. 7. Nietzsche's perspective on how to respond. From this viewpoint, the question becomes how to deal with criticism and hostility. One option is to constantly try to adjust yourself to avoid judgment, explain yourself repeatedly, or reshape your personality to gain approval. But that leads to a life shaped by external expectations rather than internal direction. A different approach is accepting that approval from everyone is impossible. You cannot control how people interpret you, but you can control how much power you give those interpretations. Criticism can either destabilize you or become information you choose not to be controlled by. The meaning you assign to it matters more than the criticism itself. So why do some people seem to dislike you without a clear reason? Because you may represent something they are not comfortable confronting in themselves. Because your growth highlights their stagnation. Because your difference disrupts their expectations. Because your competence challenges their insecurity. And sometimes, simply because you are not conforming to what they expect. History rarely remembers people who were universally accepted. Many who made an impact faced resistance, misunderstanding, or rejection before recognition. In the end, the more important question is not why people react the way they do, but how much control you allow those reactions to have over your direction in life.